Hey, everybody. Super exciting chat today. We are live to Singapore with a really intriguing and interesting guest with a new and innovative approach to web security. And delighted to have Vivek from SquareX. How are you, Vivek?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much, Evan, for having me on the show. Super excited and looking forward to chatting with you and seeing what interesting questions the audience has.
Well, I have lots of questions for you, and I'm excited to dive in. But maybe before that, give us an overview of SquareX. What's the problem it solves today? Who should be using it? And maybe a bit about the backstory.
So SquareX is a browser security product which detects, blocks, and threat hunts web attacks in the enterprise happening against your employees. And that's a fancy way of kind of putting it, but in very simple terms, I think, pretty much most organizations have their employees spend 90% of their time in the web browser. All our SaaS applications and everything is online, and the browser is a portal via which we access it. And that is really where all the threats which end up targeting your enterprise employees also end up, starting from the internet, and the browser is a gateway into your computer. And that is really where SquareX is building a security product, which is a browser native, so that we stand in that gateway, watch over everything which is happening. And at any time that we end up detecting an attack, we end up blocking it. So Evan, the backstory is really very interesting. I've been in cybersecurity 20 years, 13 of them as an entrepreneur. So I've done companies before and sold them as well. And the previous one, which I did, was Pentester Academy, which was labs in the cloud. And that is really where, we were working with Fortune 500 companies, red teams, showing them how attackers would end up breaking in. And one of the recurring themes for initial access that we found was, users were probably the weakest link. They still are. And it is so easy to target them, to go ahead and, send them a malicious document. And the best example, which always worked, was on LinkedIn to send somebody, a document saying, I'm a recruiter, and we are actually headhunting for a job which is probably going to pay twice the industry wage right now. And that has 100% success rate for people downloading and opening. But unfortunately, with malware or ransomware. So anyway, having seen all that, I kind of found that there was a very big void when it came to understanding attacks happening in the browser. And that is eventually how we landed up, with the idea for SquareX. And, here we are 15 months later.
Well done. That's quite a journey. And it's very confusing for end users and even, professionals these days, given all the vast number of security solutions in the enterprise. There's a lot of overlap, and there's different, architectural choices. So how do you see yourself fitting in this landscape, and how do you differentiate yourself from all the other approaches to web security that are out there?
Yeah, that is a great question. So if you look at the current status quo when it comes to web security in the enterprise, you primarily have these proxies called secure web gateways. And these are part of SASE SSE solutions, right? Which is, the largest companies, in the whole market are SASE SSE players. Now, Evan, SWGs or secure web gateways were invented over a decade back. And that was the time when, web applications were very simple. So it was possible to go ahead and look at network traffic of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and try to infer application layer attacks. But today's world is very different. The browser is a super complex organism, almost, of the same complexity as an operating system or even more, right? Millions of lines of code, so much going on in there. At the very same time, web applications have become very complex with progressive web apps and whatnot. And that is really where secure web gateways, unfortunately, are unable to detect a lot of the client-side attacks because they have no application context. They don't understand user interactivity. They have no clue about tabs and windows. They're just looking at flat traffic. And this is really where, the key innovation from our perspective is we felt, look, if you want to go ahead and detect web attacks happening against enterprise users, You want to do it at the place where you get the most amount of rich data and you're able to watch user interaction, application changes, and whatnot. And that's the browser. Now, a couple of years back, you couldn't do it because the browser was just an application, not a platform. And this is really where what we decided to do was, hey, build a disruptive solution which resides in the browser and can do all of this in real time. And that is really where what we kind of hope is, when enterprises are looking at creating policies around, web browsing, they can easily see that we offer the most amount of flexibility. Now, additionally, this year at DEF CON, the world's largest hacker conference, our research team is going to be putting up a brand new class of attacks which will render secure web gateways completely useless. So I don't know if you plan to be there at DEF CON or Black Hat, but if you do, definitely drop by our talk.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. What a great event. Although, August in Las Vegas is not my favorite place, but yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
event. How critical an issue is this today? Securing browsing, the web browser in the enterprise. Do you think this is a big overlooked area? I mean, even as a small business myself, I've always thought, well, Google Chrome is very secure. They're always patching and fixing and updating, and they talk
Correct.
a lot about security, but it sounds like it's not enough.
Now, that's a great question. So Evan, if you look at, the browser creators, whether it is Chrome, whether it is, Safari, Firefox, I think what these guys are preoccupied with is software vulnerabilities in the browser. So let's say there is a new zero-day buffer overflow exploit or something else. That's really what the Chrome, Firefox, and Safari team are really preoccupied with. Now, most of the attacks which happens against enterprise users are really application layer attacks. I give you a very simple example. Almost everyone is downloading and installing browser extensions left, right, and center with all the AI revolution going on, right?
Yeah, guilty
AI
as charged.
co-pilots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what most people don't realize is a lot of bad actors are putting up this AI extensions in the Chrome store and in other places. And at the back end, literally offering you free access to, GPT-4 or whatnot, which otherwise you'd have to pay for. But once this browser extension gets installed, it can actually steal credentials, go ahead and do transactions on your behalf and all sort of crazy stuff. And this is just one example of how an application layer browser extension could end up compromising your security. Web attacks, drive-by download, session hijacking. There is a massive number of these, which unfortunately browser vendors aren't really preoccupied with, because this is basically at the app layer, not at the application layer, which is what they tend to feel is their responsibility.
Oh, it's a great insight. I have to get those extensions I'm using deleted right away.
Or just use SquareX.
Yes, well, that's another good piece of advice for after this call. And you're incorporating AI into the technology. How are you doing that exactly, and what's your approach there?
So that's a great question as well. I think, we are looking at AI from three different, points of view. The first, of course, is we have machine learning algorithms and AI algorithms, which we run in the browser itself as WebAssembly modules. And this is looking at all the rich data based upon, when a website loads, what's really happening in the DOM, what is the user doing, what are the browser events. And these algorithms are starting to learn of what is good versus bad, and then they can do detection right there. Now, the second place where we end up using AI is in the admin console itself. Now, Evan, most admins, the biggest complaint, even if you give them very granular rule sets, is unfortunately they have to go learn those parameters, learn that language, and figure out how to write effective rules. So today, with the entire AI revolution going on, what we've done is our entire rule and policy writing actually happens in natural language. So you could actually go into our application, the enterprise version, and say, you know what, I'd like to isolate all documents getting downloaded from gmail.com making sure especially that zip files, which are password encrypted, are additionally blocked. Now, the moment you write this, our AI policy rule generator takes this up and creates all of those complex combinations with parameters and whatnot, and can immediately deploy it. So that's the second place where we're using this. The third and final place is very interesting. Cybersecurity is a needle in a haystack problem. And that's really where you're looking at a massive amount of information and you're trying to get inferences and insights out of it. So the third place that we use AI is what we call our security co-pilot. And so when an attack happens, an event happens where an attacker is targeting dozens of users, we use our AI to go ahead, summarize that incident, and create auto remediation policies which can be deployed completely in an autonomous way. So these are the three ways that we've integrated AI into the product lifecycle.
Oh, well done. That's a fantastic approach. One of the other challenges enterprises facing is the remote work from home, work from anywhere phenomenon, which isn't going away by any means. And with SaaS, you can really users are beginning to access applications anywhere, right, from their home machines or home laptops, or that must be one of the key challenges that security professionals have, is how to secure not just within the office boundaries, but the home office or home environment or anywhere you can. Is that one of the key drivers as well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think, if you look at hybrid work, road warriors, people who are traveling quite a bit when it comes to their daily, job, the tricky part really is, how do you go ahead and secure them when many a times they may not even be connected to an internet connection where you could probably connect to a cloud service? So one of the key innovations that we've done is our product, which deploys as a browser extension, can even work in offline mode. Maybe you're at an airport, you've not even connected to the internet yet, but probably other users connected to the same Wi-Fi can still probably try to attack you, for what it's worth. And these are places where SquareX's product just works because we sit in the browser, watch whatever is happening. Now, the second part is, now with remote consultants and all of that, unfortunately, many of them bring their own device, which means you fundamentally have to create some kind of trustworthy platform on an untrustworthy platform, right? Non-trivial. And that is really where deploying our browser extension into plain vanilla browsers can convert that into a much more secured environment. So these, Evan, have been very big drivers. And the biggest innovation that we've done is the ability to create very granular policies so that you can slice and dice, the way you want your organization to go ahead and look at threat detection and blocking. I think gives us a very big advantage compared to web proxies and other incumbents who are still looking at very high level block phishing, block a malicious website. And these are very high level objectives, while we allow you to really drill down. And I can give you a very simple example. Most products would have something which says block a malicious file. And what that means is, if this is a known malicious file for which you have hashes, somewhere in the threat feed, you go and block it. Now, we all know it's impossible to detect a malicious file 100% of the times, right? Nobody probably can ever do it. There's always some attack variation. So that's where with SquareX, you could literally go in and say, you know what? If there is Office documents with a macro, go ahead, isolate it. And we can actually then show you the document in isolation pods in the cloud, rather than you being forced to have a block all or an allow all kind of extreme policy choice. While we give you flexibility, making sure that we don't get in the way of work or productivity.
Oh, nice approach. So, as you know, as a security pro, I mean, solutions in this space are notoriously difficult to manage and provision and implement, particularly enterprise-wide in a big enterprise. Have you thought about how this could be simplified and made easier for, the CISO team?
Absolutely. So I think, if I kind of break up the pain of going ahead and manning security products, I feel it's kind of like threefold. The first is, of course, products tend to be very hard to deploy, right? People don't want to deploy another endpoint security agent. The second is they're very hard to configure, apart from you just using very plain vanilla rule sets that it ships with, which is very in-depth configuration is non-trivial. The third is once attacks are detected, many of these security products unfortunately don't give you full visibility where you can immediately remediate. Unfortunately, you have to cross correlate with other products and things like that. So what we've tried to do is solve the browser security problem in an elegant way. And that is where to begin with, the deployment is super easy. We all know extension deployment is single click, even if you had to do it as an end user. As an enterprise user, you could just deploy it with a group policy, and that just automatically starts running within the browser rather than occupying another process space as an endpoint agent. And that's a very big difference. The second part is using AI, using natural language. We've made it exceptionally easy for people to go in, write very granular rule sets which are very specific to an organization. Simple example, with our product, you could literally go in and write rules which say, hey, you know what, allow clipboard copies from the enterprise CRM, but when that happens, only allow pasting into other enterprise applications and not onto other websites, right? Uh, the third part, which is really once we detect attacks, once we detect certain workflows which the enterprise has put in as rules and policies, we make it extremely simple using attack graphs and cross correlation across the enterprise when it comes to detecting these attack graphs. So you can go in and say Bob, Jane, and Mary, all three of them were targeted in a very similar way by the same group of attackers.
Wow.
So the idea really is, how do you make everything very streamlined, very kind of like easy to work with? I feel we've done that based upon the early feedback that we are getting from our adopters.
Oh, fantastic insight. And speaking of customers, maybe what other feedback have you been getting from your early customers, and how's that sort of informing your development plans and sort of next steps?
So Evan, we did something very interesting. So I think most products tend to kind of work in a silo for a while and then go out and say, look, here's the big unveil. So what we did was, because we were creating a disruptive product as an extension, we put out a very early version for cybersecurity and IT people to try and test out individually. So A, we get a lot of great feedback. B, we can also stress test it. Look, as an individual, you're going to uninstall an extension that ends up slowing your system or creating issues. Now, in the past 6 months, we've had over 200,000 cybersecurity IT people, researchers, enthusiasts from around the world install our extension, use it, try it, give us valuable feedback.
Wow.
So the best part was when we ended up, going ahead and unveiling the enterprise version at RSA last month. We had so many people walk up to our booth and say, you know what, I've used your free version. I'm curious to know what's going on in the enterprise one. And now that we've started deploying, towards pilots and whatnot, people are coming with a lot of interesting feedback. I think the pro has always been the granularity with which SquareX allows them to address various use cases. The key thing that we've learned, interestingly, is AI seems to be a very big concern for enterprises, because everybody wants to simplify their workflow by just copy pasting everything into Chat GPT and getting summaries. So to your question, the big interesting reveal has been enterprises want very granular controls on sites like ChatGPT and other AI sites, where they are able to control how you copy paste, what you upload, what you download. Give you a very simple example. Developers tell ChatGPT to create sample code, right? Now imagine you copying that and pasting it into your organization's code base. Is that a copyright violation? And this is something which is still getting debated in the courts. But a lot of organizations want us to block that code cross-pollination. And, so that was a very interesting use case which came up, among many.
Yeah, great example. And this wave of AI usage is only going to turn into a tsunami with Apple's version of AI coming out later this year. Pretty much every
Yeah.
worker, knowledge worker, is going to have access to it. And gosh, the implications are pretty huge. So you've been around as a formal company about 15 months, which in tech that's like years. That's a long time. But a young
Yeah.
company, what are some of the milestones, and what are you looking forward to over this year?
Yeah. So I think the last 15 months has been fantastic. I think we've built a one of a kind disruptive product where, as I mentioned, 200,000 individuals using it, where they're giving us feedback. Now the enterprise version has gone out. I think the next 6 months is going to be to start going into as many enterprises, start learning more use cases, converting our design partners and pilots into, actual full blown customers. And from there, kind of growing the company, raising the next round and kind of seeing where it goes. So I think we are in a very interesting inflection point because now we have a production grade stable product which is starting to get a lot of appreciation, and we are in the process of accommodating as many use cases as we can based upon the client base that we are attacking.
Fantastic. And you personally have connections to both the Bay Area and Singapore. Maybe tell us about the team that you're building and growth within that team.
Yeah, so I think the last 15 months has been amazing. From a team wise, we've kind of grown to almost 25 people worldwide. And originally, what I wanted was, for the entire technical team, the early GTM team, to sit together, exchange notes, because when
Mm,
you're in very early stage, it's difficult to go ahead and work where it's just one day you kind of talk to somebody, the next day you come in, and there's been an earth shattering kind of difference in the way you've been thinking about the product. So I think we did a very good job at getting everybody together, building the team out, building the product out, and that has been fantastic. So we have people we've hired in Singapore and India. We just opened up the US subsidiary, and now we are in the process of hiring people in America, primarily for GTM and for certain tech roles. And that's how we are planning to grow the team. From a milestone perspective, of course, the US remains one of the largest markets for us. I've been very lucky that I've lived in India, I've lived in America many years, and now in Singapore. That gives me a very nuanced view of how US
mm,
customers, CISOs, cybersecurity folks, they all think, especially with Pentester Academy. We had close to almost 30,000 cybersecurity people, hundreds of enterprises,
wow.
use our products. And that was the previous company, which I kind of sold and got acquired by INE, which was Providence Equity. And so I kind of feel like I understand the customer mindset, and we have a very good technical team as well. Of course, finally, we'll get to know how things pan out in the next few months, but I'm super optimistic, very proud of what the team has achieved. And hopefully, the next 6 months is going to be even more fantastic.
Well, I look forward to seeing it all unfold, and congratulations on all the success, onwards and upwards. And good luck at DEF CON. If I'm not there, I'll definitely be following along. And yeah, everyone follow SquareX on social media. They do a great job. I mean, you personally, but also your team on social, very insightful and educational content. So well done. And your peers are not keeping up when it comes to social media. So well done on
Yeah.
that side. Thanks so much for your time, Vivek.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Evan. Really appreciate you taking the time. This was a great discussion. And yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much. Take care. Bye bye.